Okay, so the dust has cleared. Dune Part 2 has released everywhere to widespread acclaim. Go check out my spoiler-free review if you haven't seen it yet to get my thoughts. But general thoughts, I'm really excited about this movie. I really love it. And I just came back from seeing it a second time in theaters, and I thought, why not take the time now to discuss some of the key spoilers in this film and how they impacted the film's quality and what it might mean for the future. With that said, let's get into it. Starting off, I have not read the books yet. I've ordered the first book, and I will read Dune Messiah when Part 3 has released. So please, no spoilers for Dune Messiah in the comments below. So as I gather, Part 1 and Part 2 complete the whole arc that the first book had. And it was absolutely mind-blowing what Denis Villeneuve was able to do here. This is a film that you just don't see in 20 years. I truly believe, after seeing it twice, that there's just no way that we have gotten a film this epic, executed as brilliantly as this, since we had Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. Across all technical categories, and its engaging story that just feels epic. Just wow. Absolutely wow. And a lot of this has to go into a lot of what it's able to do in the ending. That was the toughest thing to kind of dance around in my spoiler-free review, because that was ultimately my favorite part of this movie. The final hour in Dune Part 2 is phenomenal. I'm not going to recap the movie. You've probably already seen it if you're here. But some of my favorite moments, firstly, I absolutely loved the whole relationship between Chani and Paul Atreides. It just does a great job of making you buy into this relationship. And as we get to the end of the film, as we see Paul Atreides turn into this monster, this person that has become hungry for power after he's had the water of life where he can just see everything in the past and in the future, all his visions become a lot more clearer. And because of that, he slowly starts to become what I think is slightly uncaring. It still seems like he has love for Chani. However, he kind of also is so driven by what he's aiming to do that if Chani misses out in the process, it's almost a necessary evil that he has to take. And that's kind of what I gathered from the very ending of this movie. He let her walk away, clearly knowing that she's not too keen about him completely taking over and going to war with every single other family in this universe. And I do think Dune Part 3 is going to go into this holy war. That's what Rebecca Ferguson's Lady Jessica, the Reverend Mother now, stated to the baby at the end of this film. The holy war has begun. And I fully believe that we're going to go into that. I think we're going to see the sister, who I believe is named Alia, and is a character that I think a lot of fans of the book were really excited to see. Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be the one playing her. She is the mysterious character, and she's very important in this movie. Timothée Chalamet's performance during these scenes, as he fully embraces his destiny, essentially, is phenomenal stuff. Some of the best acting I have seen from Timothée Chalamet, and I've seen a lot of his films. What a wonderful performance, and the range that this character has. He evolves so much throughout the course of this film that he's a completely different person to what he was in Dune Part 1 and the beginning of Dune Part 2, where he's kind of this gentle person. He does seem caring, but he does have a thirst for revenge after what happened to his family at the end of Part 1. I really liked seeing him build this camaraderie with the Fremen throughout the course of the film, culminating in just an amazing scene where he gets to ride the Shai-Hulud in just a phenomenal sequence. The use of the sound here when he's riding the worm is breathtaking. It really sucks you into the movie. It makes you feel like you're just standing right next to Paul as he's riding this sandworm, because it's so immersive. Moments like that are just cinematic magic that you just don't really ever experience. I don't know how Denis Villeneuve managed to film a lot of these scenes. It was utterly breathtaking. That brings me to the amazing arena sequence and the use of the lighting here. It has this black and white, but it feels very natural to where they are located. And it's brilliant stuff. And getting this really cool introduction to Austin Butler's Fade Rother was a great cinematic moment. He's such a badass character. He's such a worthy villain. And I do think that he is a more threatening villain overall in this movie than what the Baron was in part 1. Not hating on Stellan Skarsgård's amazing performance in that role because he kills it. The voice is almost going to become iconic. But what Austin Butler does as Fade Rother was just what I was looking for. And adding a lot more of a personal stake to this as you get this really mind-blowing revelation in this film that Paul is related to the Harkonnens. That completely shocked me. I was watching the film and did not see that coming at all. It blew my mind when I found out that the Baron was his grandfather and Fade is his cousin. And you kind of see Paul embrace a little bit of that Harkonian side almost as soon as he finds out. He says, that's how we're going to get through this. We have to be like Harkonnens. And he ultimately does in a lot of these sequences. He becomes very ruthless and the Fremen are willing to follow him off a cliff. You see Stilgar throughout the entire film. It's been memed so much over the internet about how much he believes in him. Every single thing he does, Stilgar's like, as written, this is the Lisan al-Gaib. It's just really, really cool. And just that unwavering faith he has makes Stilgar a very interesting character. I really liked what Javier Bardem did with the character. Yes, he can be quite funny at points, but when you needed him to be serious and this unwavering follower, he was able to do that brilliantly without it becoming too comical and silly. And yes, I've kind of danced over it, but we're definitely going to get a part 3. It's already been said that Denis Villeneuve has written a lot of the screenplay for that film, and Hans Zimmer is already starting to work on the score. However, Denis has also said that he's probably going to take a little bit more time with this one, which is fair. I completely understand that. Let's send it off right. I do hear that Dune Messiah is a very mixed novel that does some strange things, so I think Denis is going to need to do a little bit more cleaning up from what I'm hearing about the reception of that novel. And it's going to have to be really in line with what he's done here. I do hear that part 2 has made some changes from the novel, and it seems like people who are fans of the book are a little bit mixed on it. I've heard a camp that is really happy with it and seem to think that the changes that Denis makes actually enhances the novel and makes it better. And I have heard a camp say, I'm not happy with it. Some book fans want it exactly like the novel, and I'm sorry, you're never going to get that happening. I'm a fan of the Harry Potter series, and that was the only series that I had read the entire books before I watched the movies. And yeah, they were never going to adapt every little thing in those movies, but they did a really good job of capturing the essence of those novels. And as long as Denis can do that with Dune, that's a great adaptation. But going deeper into Paul Atreides and that final act, one of my favorite scenes in this film that I mentioned was near the end of the film in my spoiler-free review, and I was like, I can't talk about it, was definitely the knife fight between him and Fade Rother. It just felt so personal. And the decision from Denis to cut the score here, have no music in a movie that plays music a lot and is very loud, was a brilliant choice. Knowing when to use the score is instrumental to making a great film sometimes, and Denis picks the exact right moments of when to play the score versus when not to play the score. And in this sequence, it felt like he took inspiration from the Batman vs. Bane fight in The Dark Knight Rises, which is one of my favorite fight scenes of all time. So to take some inspiration from that, I'm happy to see that, because it just makes everything feel very personal in this fight. It feels very intimate, and you're kind of seeing something that you probably shouldn't be seeing. And you're seeing two people pretty equal to each other. Both have been pinned to be the potential one, the one that the Bene Gesserit are looking for. The fight was full of these high stakes. For a second, I did think Paul Atreides might die, because when he got stabbed, it looked like it was going to be kind of fatal, but he managed to fight through it and kill Fade Rother in just this really epic fight. I absolutely adored that fight. And then the monologue that he has during that, the monologue he also has to the Fremen before they go out to fight. Epic stuff. I just can't believe it. And that was the real dagger to my heart watching this, when he said that he'll take Princess Carino's hand in marriage, because it just felt like, oh, you're just going to leave Chani to the wayside so that you can chase this power. And once again shows Paul Atreides' descent a little bit into this just power-thirsty person. It's kind of crazy because I have always taken him to be a really good character and a good person, but Gurney is really instrumental in this shift. The way that he encourages Paul to go after the nuclear warheads and chase this power, constantly saying the war is inevitable, kind of makes Paul start thinking about it a little bit more. And the same thing is said for the Reverend Mother. As soon as Lady Jessica becomes that character and starts seeing everything, she's encouraging him to go south, even though Paul knows if he does that, calamity is going to ensue. And that's exactly what happens. He ends up going down there, he has the water of life, and becomes just this tyrant. And I'm really, really excited to see what they do in part 3. It's not often that you have a protagonist in such an epic series kind of turn the other way here. I kind of still want the best for Paul. I hope he does kind of find the error of his ways eventually. But right now, I'm just on board with everything here. I love the shift. The way that Timothée Chalamet commands the screen in these scenes is amazing. So if that's the way it goes fully in part 3, fuck, I'm on board for that too. Whatever Denis does, I trust him completely. I trusted him completely after part 1, and I'm going to trust him completely after part 2, because he has delivered in both these films in the highest possible way. I'm going to talk a little bit about a slightly contentious point in the film that I've seen come up a couple of times in a couple of other people's videos, saying that certain characters died a little bit too quickly and felt insignificant. And those two were definitely the Baron and Raban. Those two died basically in one quick scene. They were disposed of quite quickly. So I think people thought that they were a little bit shortchanged there because of that, because you didn't get this big scene, especially with the Baron, because he was the main antagonist in part 1. But to me, I actually really liked it. Them dying so quickly actually showed to me how insignificant they were in this story. When Paul disposes of the Baron so quickly, it just shows how he just is nothing to Paul anymore. Paul has his goals set so much higher than the Baron. He's looking right at the Emperor, he's looking at all the other families and completely taking over and starting this holy war potentially if they don't fall in line. And him killing off the Baron just shows how powerful Paul has become and how much he does not care. And I thought Gurney killing Raban was a fine choice, and the way that he did it was fine to me. Gurney has a nice line, "That's for my Duke and that's for my friends," and he dies. I like that. I think that's a good decision, and I think it was executed really well. And I guess those are some of my spoiler thoughts towards Dune Part 2. There's many other layers to this film that we can definitely go into. It's a big movie. And I want to know if there's any other elements to Dune Part 2 that really struck a chord to you. There are just so many. The "Long Live the Fighters" scream by Paul Atreides was another great moment. There's just so many moments. Some in the first act, some in the second act, some in the third act. I do think Dune Part 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time already, having seen it twice, and I'm maybe seeing it a third time in theaters. And I'm going to tell you right now, that basically never happens. So that just shows you how special the movie is to me. And I honestly can't wait to buy this on 4K and watch it a million more times, because it deserves that. This is an epic saga that truly lives up to that word, and I couldn't recommend it to really any more people. This is real cinema. This is real epic blockbuster filmmaking of the highest order. It takes me back to a time when blockbusters were the best films around, not some just cheap looking schlock that is dumbed down to appeal to every single person. Dune Part 2 and Dune Part 1 are both challenging in ways, but that makes for a great experience in subsequent rewatches. And those are my thoughts. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.